Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing well. So we're continuing reading of Suetonius's Lives of the Caesars. Now, we do have to, wonder how much of it is tabloidy, how much of it is, generous or ungenerous, okay? But still, it is a wonderful insight into ancient Rome, and we are continuing on XXIII, okay? When at the close of his consulship, the praetors Gaius Memmius and Lucius Domitius moved an inquiry into his conduct during the previous year. Caesar laid the matter before the Senate, and when they failed to take it up, and 3 days had been wasted in fruitless wrangling, went off to his province. So here it's like you get to see how Caesar dealt with, the inability of the Senate to do what they had to do. Kind of seems like we still have gridlock today, Whereupon his quaestor was at once arranged on several counts as a preliminary to his own impeachment. Okay, so remember, they're trying to impeach him. They're worried, like, what's Caesar up to? Presently, he himself, too, was prosecuted by Lucius Antestius, Tribune of the Commons. Okay, so there's another title for us, Tribune of the Commons. So Lucius Antestius was somebody who was trying to prosecute Caesar for impeachment. And it was only by appealing to the whole college that he contrived not to be brought to trial, on the ground that he was absent on public service. Oh, look at that. That's his loophole. Well, I was absent, therefore you can't bring me to trial. Then, to secure himself for the future, he took great pains always to put the magistrates for the year under personal obligation. Look at that. So to secure himself, he is going to put the magistrates under some personal obligation, and not to aid any candidates or suffer any to be elected, save such as guaranteed to defend him in his absence. So look at that. So he's telling these magistrates, don't aid the candidates and don't let them be elected, and you must defend me in my absence. So this is a point where you can see the probability of it, right? But you also wonder, like, hey, Suetonius, are you being a little bit mean here? But you can also definitely realize there was probably bribing, in ancient Rome, just like there is today. And he did not hesitate, in some cases, to exact an oath to keep this pledge, or even a written contract. Okay, so look at that. A pledge or a written contract. So he's really going full circle to make sure that, hey, you're going to do what I said and what you agreed with. When, however, Lucius Domitius, candidate for the consulship, openly threatened to effect as consul what he had been unable to do as praetor, and to take his armies from him. Look at that. So he wants to take Caesar's armies from him. So he wants to be a candidate for the consulship. He's openly stating his antagonisms towards Caesar. So consul, he can do that. As a praetor, he can't. So look at that. Caesar compelled Pompeius and Crassus to come to Lucca, a city in his province, where he prevailed on them to stand for a second consulship to defeat Domitius. So here, Caesar's telling Pompey and Crassus, you need to, go for a second run in your election. You got to be consul, because Lucius, he wants something against me, and you need to defeat him. And he also succeeded through their influence in having his term as governor of Gaul made 5 years longer. So look at that. Very clever. So he gets to rule over that province that he conquered, or wants to deal with, right? As a politician there. Because if he governs Gaul, he has some protection, right? Encouraged by this, he added to the legions which he had received from the state others at his own cost. So look at that. He's adding soldiers to his legion with his own money. He's stacking those soldiers. One actually composed of men of Transpalline Gaul and bearing a Gallic name, for it was called Alauda, which he trained in the Roman tactics and equipped with Roman arms. So here, he's got people of Gaul, and they have a Gallic name, right? And he's showing them the way in which the Roman military operates and gives them Roman weapons. And later on, he gave every man of it citizenship. So you see the cleverness here. This is in 55 BC, by the way. That is smart. Okay, you're going to have a Gallic name. You're going to learn the Roman way. You're going to be armed with Roman weapons, and you get to be a citizenship. But you have to come into my legion. You see this? It's very interesting. Oh, it's clever. After that, he did not let slip any pretext for war, however unjust and dangerous it might be, picking quarrels as well with allied, as well with hostile and barbarous nations, so that once the Senate decreed that a commission be sent to inquire into the condition of the Gallic provinces, and some even recommended that Caesar be handed over to the enemy. Look at that. So they're like, hey, give Caesar to the enemy. Oh, could you imagine the kind of situation Caesar's in here, though? Think about it. You have to fight for yourself. It is, the Roman politics is like win or die, survive or die. There's some heavy, disagreements going on in ancient Rome, man. And Lucius Domitius, the candidate for consulship, is definitely, in Caesar's mind at this time. Very smart to stack his forces with the provinces that he has some hold over. But as his enterprises prospered, thanksgivings were appointed in his honor, oftener and for longer periods than for anyone before his time. During the 9 years of his command, this is, in substance, what he did. All that part of Gaul which is bounded by the Pyrenees, the Alps, and the Cevennes, and by the Rhine and Rhone rivers, a circuit of some 3,200 miles, with an exception of some allied states which had rendered him good service, he reduced to form of a province, and imposed upon it a yearly tribute of 40,000. Whoa, that's a lot of sesterces. So, appears to be 400,000 sesterces, and that's their currency at this time. So, he wants a yearly tribute. That yearly tribute obviously is going to go towards keeping his legions fed and happy, because you have to give something to your soldiers. And also bribes as well, right? He was the first Roman to build a bridge and attack the Germans beyond the Rhine. So here, another good accomplishment of Caesar is that he went beyond the Rhine. He was ready, but he also made enemies, obviously. But he still did something very unique, to which led to us knowing his name throughout history. Very interesting. And he inflicted heavy losses upon them. Yep, he did. Completely wiped out the Celts. Really destroyed the Druids, essentially. He invaded the Britons too, a people unknown before, vanquished them, and exacted monies and hostages. Amid all these successes, he met with adverse fortune but 3 times in all Britain, where his fleet narrowly escaped destruction in a violent storm. So his fleet, his ships, right? So he's sailing. Hey, big storm comes around. He loses quite a lot. In Gaul, when one of his legions was routed at Gergovia, and I have read Caesar's Gallic Wars. I had that playlist on the channel, but it showed my hair and people whined, so I deleted it. But you should read Caesar's Gallic Wars. It's a pretty cool, military book, I should say. When one of his legions was routed at Gergovia, and in the land of Germany, when his lieutenants Titurius and Aurunculeius were ambushed and slain. What I love about this is that we have his his lieutenants' names here. And Titurius is a great name for a dog. I think that'd be an awesome name for a German Shepherd. Within this same space of time, he lost his first mother, then his daughter, and soon afterwards his grandson. Meanwhile, as the community was aghast at the murder of Publius Clodius, the Senate had voted that only one consul should be chosen, and expressly named Gnaeus Pompeius. Okay, so remember how I told you? There was Gnaeus Pompeius is Pompey Magnus, okay? He married Caesar's daughter Julia. She died. When she died, that is kind of when the rift started. She was an alliance between them, right? Cato wanted Pompey to turn against Caesar, and Crassus, Brutus, and others also wanted the same. So there was a rift. So many historians love talking about this point in time. So notice the suffering here of Caesar, right? Your mother, your daughter, and your grandson are died. As well as with Genghis Khan, you see lots of suffering in their pasts and how they triumphed over it. This is something that is very common amongst these conquerors of the past. When the tribunes planned to make him Pompey's colleague, Caesar urged them rather to propose to the people that he be permitted to stand for a second consulship without coming to Rome. When the term of his governorship drew near its end, to prevent his being forced, for the sake of the office, to leave his province prematurely, and without finishing the war. On the granting of this, aiming still higher, and flushed with hope, he neglected nothing in the way of lavish expenditure or favors to anyone. Here again, you see the angle of bribery coming in. So, lavish expenditures. So, he's whining and dining, right? He's like throwing those Roman parties, nice table spreads, exotic fruits, servants, whatever else, right? And then favors is like, hey, I'll do this for you, you do this for me, and then bada bing, bada boom, we'll have some alliance. So he is utilizing that, either in his public capacity or privately. He began a forum with the proceeds of his spoils, a ground for which cost more than 100 million sesterces. Look at that. He's balling. He's balling. But remember, he got that tribute, right? A yearly tribute. So he's got some cash on him, right? He announced a combat of gladiators and a feast for the people in memory of his daughter, a thing quite without precedent. So here, he's got gladiators. I mean, think how kind of cool that is, you know? You get to see some cool gladiators, you know, as a sort of funeral memorial. It is quite interesting, you know? And a grand feast. So that's the, remember how it said, you know, he's spending, so it is showing up right here, because gladiators aren't cheap, right? They weren't cheap. To raise the expectation of these events to the highest possible pitch. So that's a good point, right? The need of the aristocrats to have fun, so he can create some types of alliances with them, is very important, right? He had the material for the banquet prepared in part by his own household, although he had let contracts to the markets as well. That's very cool. So his own household helped prep, and the markets are making some good money from him as well. So it shows the dignitaries, hey, I'm going to have my own personal people who I know and trust prep the food, while also getting some money channeled into the local community, right? He gave orders to that whenever famous gladiators fought without winning the favor of the people, they should be rescued by force and kept for him. Look at that. That's interesting. He had the novices trained, not in gladiatorial school by professionals, but in private houses by Roman knights, and even by senators who were skilled in arms, earnestly beseeching them, as is shown by his own letters, to give the recruits individual attention and personally direct their exercises. He doubled the pay of the legions for all time. Whenever grain was plentiful, he distributed to them without stint or measure, and now and then gave each man a slave from among the captives. Look at that. See how he treats the soldiers? So, hey, here's some grain. He's generous, right? Gives them some slaves from among the captives that he has from Gaul. Private houses by Roman knights. Think about how. So the gladiatorial things equivalent we have today is UFC fighters. They don't fight to the death, but they are the most brutal fighters, right? So that would be like a president having a direct hand in the training of UFC fighters. How cool is that, right? That's, amazing. So he rescued some by force, and he's like, hey, they're not favored by the people, so let me get them, and we'll train them up. So there's gladiatorial schools, and then here they show that there's Roman knights from the aristocrats, the senators, right, who were able to teach. But here it also says that he was part of some training sessions as well. So, man, you see how he is? He has the love of the legions and the love of the gladiators. Think about it. Very distinct, right? No wonder why the senators were fearful of him, because he had so much love. But he paid attention to the strength of his empire, making sure they were good, taking care of them. He doubled their pay of the legions, right? Here's money, here's grain, here's spoils, here's slaves. Let me train up the gladiators. Let me have gladiators fight for my daughter's, funeral party or something. Really giving good money to the people who own the gladiators as well, right? Getting their allegiance, getting their favor. So the common people definitely were fans of Caesar, and indeed we can learn a lot from him. History is amazing.